So this is actually part one in a two-part series that I'm going to be doing on improving reaction time, speed, and moving the body more freely, right? We're going to take a look at what gets in the way, right? What prevents that from happening, as well as how to, make things work better. Okay. So in part two next week, right, I will be going into a cool thing that was introduced to me via weapons, actually sword training, by one of the master teachers in Japan a long, long time ago, that I then took and related to every aspect of movement, right? So that's the external side of training, or the external side of this topic. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at some internal factors, right? Things that we need to get right from the inside out. Next week will be from the outside in, right? So, and if you're joining in live, right, congratulations. You're here for our last episode of Whiteboard Wednesday. No, there's not a period there, right? Last episode of Whiteboard Wednesday for 2022, right? Next episode will be a whole new year, right? So anyway, again, today in part one, we'll be looking at a cool aspect of brain wiring that's related to your eyes and reaction time, right? And how quickly muscles will fire in response to something, as well as what effect the emotions have physiologically in relation to spine and ultimately footwork, right? And your ability to move freely, okay? I get comments every once in a while, right? Why should you listen to me? Whatever, right? So let me just get the elephant out of the room, right? And literally for some people, they probably see an elephant, right? Yes, I'm old. Yes, I'm carrying extra weight. You can call it fat. You can call it whatever you want. But I'm also one of a small handful, a small percentage within the entire art that has not only been in fights, protected other people, but used this stuff, right, to do the work, right? So if that's your cup of tea, great. If it isn't, you know where the back button is. You know how to click away. You can just jump onto the other entertainment that's going to, do a brain suck, right? Okay, so first we're going to take a look at a basic principle of standing, balance, and movement for a human being, right? I mean, that's what we are, right? We're not drunken monkeys. We're not cranes. We're not pick something, right? We're not tigers. We're not cobras, whatever. I'm not saying that we can't pull lessons from those things, right? All those arts are valid and everything, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is what I got, right? We're human beings, and this machine is designed to work a certain way, and there's certain things that are working on us that we need to make sure that we understand, right? Okay, so, but again, before I jump into that, here's the disclaimer, right? If you're still following, this will be the time to make a different decision, right? This lesson, right, we're going to go deep, and this is going to be for people who like to think, understand tactics, strategies, those kind of things. It's what the whole damn series is about, right? But anyway, it's not for the faint of heart, right? It's not for people who don't like to think. It's not for those who just want cool moves, right, and knowing where their foot goes or whatever. If that's your stage of training, that's great. You can still watch it, kind of follow along, shelve it until you're ready for this kind of thing. But if that's you in a nutshell, right? Just all physical. Let's see who's the bigger, badder guy. If I wrestle you and pin you down, or if I knock you out or whatever, I'm the winner. And we're not considering other things like if you didn't kill the guy, or even if you did, you might have to be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life, or at least the next 7 months or whatever, right? Okay. So if that's you, right, those kind of things, then this is not for you. Also, if you're the kind of person that likes to jump on videos and say this would never work, I don't think that these things would help in an actual survival situation, right? Or they wouldn't work on the street or whatever, right? Then it's not for you either, right? Again, you know where the back button is, you know where the whatever, right? You know where the suggested videos are on the side there if you're on YouTube, whatever, okay? Not for you, okay? So first thing we're going to take a look at, right, and it's probably going to be a dumb moment for you. I hope not, but maybe, right? Okay. I'm going to do some stick figures because that's my drawing speed, right? Okay. First thing we need to understand for a human being, those are shoulders, those are hips, right? Not quite as refined as the line drawings and the scrolls, right? All right, we'll put a little nose here, right? Okay. That's the ground. It's also the Japanese kanji or the Chinese kanji character for ichi, right? One, but it's not just one, right? It's a picture of the ground. Anyway, right? So we need to understand that as human beings, we're bipeds, right? I know, shocking revelation, right? That means we have two limbs that we're walking around on. We're not a three-legged stool. We're not a dog, goat, whatever. We've got 4 points of contact with the ground. We've got two, which means a couple of things. One, we're always in a constant state of shifting balance, okay? And two, we're in a constant state of doing one important thing, neutralizing the effect of gravity on our body, okay? So there's a couple of things that keeps us standing as a human being, but we need to understand that gravity, right, is something that we contend with. The longer you've been doing this, the older you are, right, the more the it's called Broca's region in your brain. There's a section on either side, right, that filters out 99.9% of the things that occur to you every day that's occurred every previous day, right? We just don't think about it. We don't feel it anymore or whatever until you do certain training drills or whatever that wake things up, right? That you actually have to start paying attention to it, okay? But our ability to neutralize the effect of gravity on our body is one of the biggest things that's going to increase our reaction time. Call it speed, call it whatever you want, right? To most people, speed is just throw things around a whole lot faster, right? But if all I'm doing is gauging that on muscle contraction, am I really getting everything that I can, right? What happens when I'm ill? What happens as I turn 60 next month. So what happens as I age? Hatsumi Sensei's always talked about this, right? Okay. All the comments that go flying around, and yet people tend to skip over the guy that, was 80 or almost 90 or whatever, right? And going slower than the 20-somethings that were punching at him and somehow faster. See, that's the magic that's always attracted me, right? Any monkey can go faster, okay? How do we do things in a way that as life takes its toll, as nature does what nature does, right? How, right? Okay. One of the things that attracted me as a 20-something getting involved in this martial art, coming out of a shit ton of other martial arts that were all about strength and speed and trickiness and all that, was the idea that as we age, we will lose muscle mass, we will lose speed, we will lose strength. It's just a natural part of aging. But the ninja's arts actually allow us to go to be faster than the other person, whatever, okay? And I don't mean like physically faster. It's more perceptually, right? But the things that improve with age, timing, angling, spatial perceptions, those kind of things, right? That's where we're focusing, right? So how do we prepare for the time in our life where we're most likely to be a victim of some 20-something shithead or thug, right? Rather than doing everything that the 20-something thug does, but we're going to grow out of that, right? Which is why, 30, 35, whatever, depending on the national or international association, right? In sport martial arts, right? You're now considered a senior, right? And you get handicap points and all that, right? Because they're still gauging things on being an 18 to 25-year-old, okay? So anyway, right? So a lot of things we're going to be talking about today is working with gravity, and actually part 2 will be about working with gravity. What we're going to be talking about now during this session is neutralizing the effect of gravity and things that we can do, again, with our frame and our structure and all that. And then at the end, I've got this little bonus I talked about earlier where we're going to take a look at sight and how adjusting how we use our eyes can actually increase our reaction time or our response time to something. And what I mean by that is we recognize something happening or danger and muscles fire, right? So again, if you don't put it in, one of my teachers used to always say, right, will this stuff help on the street? Well, I know that it won't help if I don't work on it, if I don't practice it, okay? If I don't do something, I can never be successful with it, right? But what that really means is if I don't put it in it's not going to come out. And also this has to do with practice, right? So just like, if you learn ninja walking in my program or in anybody's program, right? Every time you walk, you should be practicing the new method of walking, new ways of controlling your feet, the alignment and things like that, right? Posture and whatnot, so that you can get to the point where you are now, where you don't think about it anymore. It's not something you do. It becomes so much a part of who you are, you don't even have to think about it, okay? It's replacing one set of habit patterns and neuro triggers and firings and things like that with something that you actually want happening when you're not thinking about it, okay? It's called automatic response, okay? All right, so anyway, so this is what we're looking at here, okay? So we're going to look at body posture, alignment, right? Standing for human beings, okay? So first one, which I've covered a lot for folks, and I'm going to do this one, the same guy, but we'll do it sideways, right? So, okay, there's another leg on the other side of that one, right? There's another arm on the other side of that one. There's a nose, right? So what we're lining up, put a foot down here, okay? So what we're lining up is ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, and hips over feet. Please notice that knees were not on the list, okay? Knees are not on the list, okay? Again, what's the goal? Neutralizing the force of gravity on the body, okay? Anybody that's having a problem with a handstand or a headstand, okay? It's because you're fighting gravity, okay? If you could just think about lining everything up on top of each other, right? You're just inverse, lining everything up and feeling gravity on your body, just like when you first learn to walk, okay? Stop thinking about where to put trying to get your legs to go and try to force it and all that, but just feel gravity and then line things up. You could stay there longer, okay? All right, so neutralizing the force of gravity. Everything's about this. This is very, very general, okay? This is about the spinal line, right? This is about the spine, okay? Let's probably do that in a different color, okay? Spine has a kind of it has a natural curvature, right? So we've got cervical part, we've got thoracic, we've got lumbar, that kind of thing, right? So we've got this anatomically straight line, okay? We want to keep this up here. We're going to talk about this in a minute, because can you not have these things in alignment and still be standing, not fall down? Of course, people freaking do it all the time, right? You see people walking around with this big old pelvic tilt, right? It's something that if you don't have it, this little extra that I'm carrying, right? It's a diabetic kind of thing, right? I got this diabetic gut, right? If I don't have it right, this would create this pelvic tilt. So now my pelvis is not this way, it's this way, right? So does that mean I'm going to fall down? No. What it does mean, though, is that if that's happening, my head and shoulders will lean back, right? It'll mean that the weight's in a weird place on my feet, all that, right? Okay. So can you stand that way? Absolutely. We'll talk about why that happens here in a minute, right? Okay. There's another alignment, which I learned from teachers a long time ago, that, and we talk about this when it comes to like doing locks, holds, throws, that kind of thing, right? This connection between the spine and the legs, right? Huge, okay? So what we're covering today is the opposite of an old Whiteboard Wednesday that I did on how to take somebody down. And we talked about how 90% of your techniques are about locking the spine and immobilizing the feet, okay? So that's, screwing him up. But if we barely have any kind of control over our own and he resists, well, shit, it's going to work on us too, okay? So this is actually the yin to the yang, or however you want to look at that, right? Okay. So the other thing, right? Just do a leg here. That's the thigh, back of the knee, calf, heel, right? Foot. Okay. So, sorry. I used to be an artist, but anyway, right? So what we're looking at are the three primary joints, and I didn't make this in a straight line by any means because I'm off to the side, right? So there is a connection, right? There is an alignment between the hip joint, the knee joint, and the ankle, right? And we want to keep those in alignment. not just sideways here, but also from the front, right? If we don't have that as we age, things will end up, you can't see this, I have to back up way far, but you end up bow-legged, right? This kind of thing, or people end up with a hunch in their back or their ass sticking out or whatever, right? So there's this alignment, okay? To take somebody down or to compromise their balance, okay? I don't have to work on all this, right? I just know that this alignment between the hip, knee, and ankle is what allows me to stand, because with the right alignment, right? Again, it's neutralizing gravity, but those are the joints that are constantly shifting and flexing to help me neutralize balance. If they didn't flex, it would be happening up here like a skyscraper in high winds, okay? So these things are constantly moving, right? But to take somebody down, all I have to do is misalign one or more of these in this unit, and he's going to fall down, okay? We have to make sure that, again, if we're going to do this long term, if you're just looking to just earn your Shodan or the next belt or whatever, and you're not in this until you drop over dead, right, then it's not going to matter, right? What we're looking at doing is living to Hatsumi Sensei's lessons from a long time ago, where the older you get, the better you get, okay? But the only way to do that is to make sure that the body will last. Yes, things are going to atrophy and all that kind of stuff, but whatever muscle you have, right, the joints should be in alignment, okay? If we're constantly fighting ourselves and we're constantly fighting gravity, man, the moment you're not able to do that, your house of cards falls down, okay? All right, so anyway, so here's the second thing. So the first thing is this ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, that kind of thing, right? So this is a general alignment for neutralizing gravity, okay? The other thing, the alignment between the hips, knees, and ankles, okay? So we can stand, right? Things can be out of place. You've seen people walk down the street all hunched over, or got this hunchback, or their shoulders are rolled in, right? Or they got this sunken head kind of thing, right? Things are constantly firing so that you don't fall over, right? We don't think about it, but it's happening, okay? Limps and gimps and all kinds of stuff, right? With this alignment, this can be off, but it's going to be harder to make sure that things work, okay? It's harder to stand if we don't have this, okay? But what's allowing us to skate through and have things that are off and not fall down, right? Well, there's this other thing that goes on in the body, right? It's muscle tension, right? I'm not going to draw muscles, right? So muscle tension that keeps the spine aligned, that helps to fight gravity. The problem with this, right? You ever know anybody that they've got a desk job? They sit at a desk all day long, right? Or they've got a standing job, right? I remember being, when I did bodyguard work, okay? People used to look at me and go, you stand around all day long, dude. Seriously? That's what you get paid for? Shit, give me that job. It's not that, right? How do they stand around all day long, right? Come home and we're fatigued, but we're not fatigued physically, right? It's mentally, because you've been on observation-wise for however long that thing was, from the time you picked up your principal to, I don't mean school principal, right? From the time you picked up the guy writing a check, right, to everything that had to go on to the time you got him back, or you did security team shift change or whatever, right? So, but when these things are in alignment, right, everything is good, right? Of course, you need some muscle tone and those kind of things to allow that to happen, okay? Anybody that's ever been in the military, especially Army, Marines, whatever, right? Okay, we're in formation a lot, okay? They always tell you, don't lock your knees back. You lock your knees back, right? Not only is that alignment out, but that locking back starts to constrain blood flow, right? Next thing you know, this guy just falls over, okay? Because they're constricting things that shouldn't be constricted, okay? So there's a way to do that, right? There's a way to energize things, get blood pumped back up into the body. Not going to go into a bunch of these things, but if you ever watched the Nakatomi version of Die Hard, right? I think it was like number 1, right? When he was told, right, if you've got jet lag, right, put your bare feet on the carpet and make fists with your feet, right? And that'll like re-energize you. Yeah, it's because you're firing your calves. Your legs are your second hearts, right? And you're pumping that stuff back up and out. It works, okay? So anyway, the more I can be in alignment, the more I neutralize this, the less my body is fighting gravity, okay? But these people that have desk jobs, they're standing or whatever, they come home and they're just wiped out, right? I didn't do anything, man. I just sat all day. It's because their posture was crappy. And what ends up happening is if the body's leaning forward, back, slumped, whatever, right? The body instinctively fires whatever muscles are necessary, right? Fires whatever muscles connected to the spine, right? To keep that correct spinal alignment. And what ends up happening is all this shit happening all day long just cooks off an inordinate amount of energy. Okay. So again, we only have so much, right? It's like a battery. So not only is this about speed and all that, right? But these other things cross over. Okay. So these are the things that we need to be paying attention to for neutralizing the force of gravity. Well, why is that important? Well, look, if I'm pitching back this way, right? If I got one of these like good old boy kind of stances, right? Where I'm kind of leaning back, and if I just stop and stand and I pay attention to the bottoms of my feet and where I feel most of the weight, if I feel it on my heels, my body is slightly behind my center line. So moving forward or in forward angles is going to be slower. Doesn't mean you're not fast. It just means you're, right? Every little quarter of a second, right? Or tenth of a second or whatever matters. Okay. So if it takes me more to go that way than it does to go this way, then I got one or two things to happen. Talk about part of this next week, right? Either choose to go that way because you're already, that's going to be easiest, right? Or fix your damn posture so you're centered so you can move in any direction at one time, okay? One of the goals I was taught way back in the day, right? Freedom of movement in any position, in any kamae, right? Means that I can move, right? If that's where I'm standing, I can move in any direction, right? Let's come back over to these guys because that's only 8, right? Up and down, okay? 10 directions in a single move, okay? I need to be able to move wherever I need to be able to go. And to do that, I have to be like neutral in a manual driven car. And if you don't, I don't care if you can drive one or not. If you understand how that works, right? Or neutral for a joystick, whatever, okay? I need to be able to go. But if I'm already in a given position and it's locked, I have to, one, go through neutral to get to the other side, but it takes longer. I don't care I'm going to say I don't care how fast you are, but the folks that buy into the faster, stronger kind of thing, just take that as a given, right? But what ends up happening is you force yourself to have to work harder to get the work done. And that runs contrary to ninjutsu, okay? How do I do the least necessary? What's the minimum effort expenditure to get the same or more output, okay? Because if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to do this stuff when you're 60, 70, 80, whatever. Okay. All right. So anyway, let me tell you a little story here about this walking thing, because again, I gave folks a chance to jump off because they don't think this stuff is going to work. They don't like to think, right? That you're never going to remember this stuff on the street. Yeah, no shit. Right. Which is why you practice it all the time. So it gets integrated into muscle memory. And it just becomes the new way of doing things, right? If you're only half-assing this stuff and you only work on it whenever, or teacher pulls the lesson out again and you have to remember how the pieces go, then you don't own that technique. You don't own that skill, right? The things that you own are the things that you can do without thinking about, right? You're at the gym. You just, got showered after a good workout and whatnot. You're putting your street clothes on, right? And you're having a conversation with somebody and tying your shoes and barely giving that any attention whatsoever. That motor skill, you own that, okay? You're still looking at it like a 6-year-old who just learned how to tie their shoes with your tongue sticking out, right? You don't own that. If you have to constantly remember how did the moves go, and I'm not talking about a kata and remembering the moves in a kata. I'm talking about your Kihon no Kihon. Walking, ninja walking is a Kihon no Kihon. It is a fundamental of the fundamentals. It is a prerequisite to even do the basics. Okay? So anyway, a bunch of years ago, probably shouldn't be telling this story, but anyway, whatever. Okay. Because the master teachers at a certain point couldn't be teaching outside the country or whatever unless they got permission. But this one wasn't teaching. He was helping his friends. So anyway, I was invited to go to Toronto, Ontario for a week, right? Because Shrey Sensei was going to be in town. He was a vice president of this Japanese company that did certain things, and they had clients, and he would check in with them. But while he was around, kind of hung out with his friends. He'd come to our classes and help with suggestions, but he wasn't teaching, right? We would do all these things, okay? So anyway, I was invited by my friend to come up, partly because, like, dude, you want to get some extra training? Yeah, of course, right? Can you do it for a week? I can make a week happen, okay? Then I find out later, well, you have a car and you can help drive us around, because otherwise I'd have to put him on public transit all the time. And I don't care what the trade is, right? But anyway, he covers ninja walking, the alignment. He was even covering like how the feet move and all that kind of stuff, right? Every time that I slipped into the old walking habit and not this, and let me tell you, my legs hurt. They were burning, right? But every time I slipped, he would say, Jeff-san, good ninja walking. Good idea. I think so, right? Which is his way of saying what I tell you, okay? I want you to practice this all the time, right? I taught you how to do this, so now every time we walk, right? Okay, great, okay? How am I doing, Sensei? Oh, good, right? And then we get to steps, up steps, down step, whatever, right? Oh, see, now you're not, okay, you're not, right? You're falling to the steps, right? From Hatsumi Sensei's been saying this for decades, right? For the average human being does not walk. The average human being is in a constant state of controlled falling. We need to walk. And what that means is your torso is being carried on your legs. Your torso is not initiating the movement of the legs. Okay? Very, very different. Okay? So, but the point that was being made was, even after I left and came back, right, had to do this all the time, right? Because the goal was to practice the new way of walking, the new posture, making sure those corrections were right, which means the muscles along the spine down along here would burn, just like they do for new people new to meditation, all that kind of stuff, right? Right? Because they had to be developed, right? And to do it until that became your way of walking. Right? People often ask me, Sensei, when are we going to work on stealth walking? Right? You're supposed to be doing it all the time. Every time we walk. That's stealth walking. Now, is there different ways to move your feet? Small step, sweeping step, but yes, of course, right? But basic walking, right, is stealth walking. Picking something up and putting it down and learning how to minimize friction and knocking and things like that against surfaces, right? Or covering them, all that kind of stuff. Every time we pick something up, put it down, pull out a chair, put a chair back, stand up, sit down, walk, or whatever, we're working on stealth, or we should be, okay? Otherwise, stealth, when we need it, is going to work for about 42 seconds or whatever, right? Until your freaking muscles burn out or you forget to pay attention to what you're doing or whatever, and next thing you know, you're making a shit ton of noise. The problem that we need to get over in the beginning, right, with stealth, but also with our walking and our posture, is the fact that we don't think about most things, okay? The amount of noise that the average person makes, when you got to clue into that first, how much noise do you make so that you can minimize that, okay? Same thing. We've long since stopped thinking about or worrying about falling down. So this has become natural, right? Here's a big problem for most people, right? Most people think this word, right? They think this word, natural, right? Actually, it's backwards. They think habitual means natural. Well, this is what's natural for me. No, that's habitual for you. That doesn't mean it's natural for a human body that's trying to lessen the wear and tear on itself. Not the same. Not the same. When your habitual is natural, now you're doing taijutsu. Not the same. Okay? So when most people say, that's not natural for me, it doesn't feel right for me, that's not me, right? They're trying to talk about this, right? But they're really talking about this. Okay? It's not the same. All right? So, but the point is, those three things that I pointed out, right? The ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over feet, the alignment here, muscle tension and all that, right? Okay? If we don't have them right, all of those, right? Especially the first two, those are out of place, we're going to get more muscle tension, right? The body is going to be fighting the falling. And so, right, how do we move in that direction or in a counter direction if we're the body's concentrating on not falling down as opposed to just holding itself? Okay. You want to see what your balance is really like? Stand in Hicho. Okay. Just shift to Hicho. Right. See how long you can stand there, moving your leg around, shifting or whatever. How are you controlling your center? Okay. So, yeah, fat guy's got moves. Anyway. All right. So, but that all results in muscle tension, and all of that works to slow you down. Okay. So, where am I here? Okay. So we already did those. So the first goal, right, is in fixing posture to neutralize the falling. Okay. Fix posture to neutralize the falling, right? We're always going to be in a state of shifting balance because we're bipeds, right? We're in a constant state of shifting balance. Okay. But, right, the trick to that is in neutralizing gravity, just like the little kids with their blocks, stacking them on top of each other, right? If they're off, eventually they fall over because gravity's pulling, right? Because everything is off, right? The more we can keep that on, right, the higher we can make that structure because it's neutralizing gravity, okay? All right, so first goal, fix the posture to neutralize the falling, right? Second one, all right, let's shift this a little bit here, okay? What kind of time do I have? All right, we're still doing good? Still doing okay. So next one actually has to do, we're going to cross over from physiology, from the muscles and skeleton, the structure, right, to neurology, right, to muscle firing, brain work, and all that, right? So we're going to talk about emotions, okay? And I don't mean happy, sad, that kind of thing. What I'm talking about is our emotional response, attraction to, repulsion from, whatever, those kind of things, and how that those psycho-emotional kind of things causes certain muscles to fire and automatically shifts the spine. Okay, so if we're not in an emotional state, right? Somebody says, "Hey man, how you feeling?" I'm here, right? Now some people say that because it's a mask, right? Because they don't want to complain, they don't get involved in it, whatever, right? But they're really depressed or who knows what, right? It becomes a cultural cliche. I'm here, same shit, different day, whatever, okay? That's actually negative water, believe it or not, right? That's sluggish and whatnot, right? But I'm talking about somebody who, what's up? Nothing, what's up with you? Okay, whatever, okay? So none of this changes. The body's relaxed, it's standing there, it's neutralizing gravity. There's no tension or pressure causing a response. It's neutral, right? It's just there. It's kind of like a mountain, right? Can you imagine a mountain trying to be strong and immovable? I hope not, because I don't want to see anything that freaking big standing in front of me like, okay? It's just there, right? It's not trying to do anything. Same thing, neutral, there, okay? One of my training peers a long time ago was a physicist, right? I remember the first day, a couple of us were talking to him and stuff, and one of my friends said, "What are you, a rocket scientist?" And he goes, "Actually," and he was. He was a freaking rocket scientist, right? But we were talking about emotions triggering action, emotional response leading the day, right? Because somebody says something to me, call my mom a name or whatever, right? Dude, is that all you got? Right? But if some defensive mechanism kicks in and right, or yeah, well, you're whatever, right? That causes motion, right? So what he did was he did one of these things, right? He actually did this. Okay. So if you remember your school days, right? What does E mean in physics? It's a symbol for energy, right? So emotions, energy in motion, right? So anyway, I don't want to get all like woo-woo on you because this is already deep enough. But what I do want to talk about is different states, right? Agitation, defensiveness, anxiety, like anxiousness, like I'm worried about somebody getting to me or whatever, right? This is an important aspect for my students in training, because if you're in that state, you need to know, one, that you're there, which is one of the definitions for kami, right? Being aware of your condition, okay? But you also need to know how these forces and muscles and whatnot are acting on your spine and what that does to your legs, because, right, you're already going in a certain direction. It'd be nice if you could kind of ride that off, right? And you'll know how to use what you have, right? You're all anxious and stuff, but, I wish I were the tiger right now. But you're not, right? So how do we use this, right, to do what we need to do, okay? So I'm just going to talk about a couple of these things very, very quickly. But again, for those of you who don't buy into the whole Godai thing, just kind of follow along. It's okay, right? But we have this earth, water, fire, wind, void, okay? The center of each. Okay? Well, that didn't work very well, did it? That's not going to show up for you, right? Here, 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 right? For those of you who've ever followed the chakras or whatever, there they are. Oh, sorry. Void's not there. Sorry, my mistake. Void is center of the throat, right? This is the sixth element, Chitta, and then there's a seventh one that's connected to you. Anyway, so what the hell does this have to do with anything, right? So this is like gravity, right? You don't have to believe in gravity to understand that if you screw up or somebody trips you, gravity is going to grab your happy ass and drag it to the ground, right, to the surface, right? You don't have to believe in any of this shit, okay? But what I'm pointing out is that there are flex points and break points in the spine that when muscles fire under a certain emotional conditions, it alters the structure of the spine to either open or close these things. And the position of the spine affects what you're able to do easily and not so easily from the hips down. Remember that hip, knee, ankle kind of thing? Okay, this is important. This one is actually at a fuse point where the spine, tailbone, whatever connects, right? So it doesn't move, which it doesn't need to move because here we are, right? The next one is just below or just behind the navel, right, at the lumbar. So when we're anxious or tensed or defensive or whatever, and those muscles, right, the stomach wall fires, flattens out the lumbar. When we flatten out the lumbar, right, I challenge you to do this without letting ego cheat, okay? Pull your gut back like you're trying to touch the front surface of your spine with your belly button, and then try, without relaxing that and without doing some weird freaking penguin thing, right? Try to take a step forward. You can do it, but the more you pull that back, the more your thighs start firing, okay? And you should also feel, if you're concentrating on the weight on the bottom of your feet, you should feel right? You should feel your weight more back here, like you're falling off your heels, okay? So hence the defensive movement. And, right, so front steps, okay, I can do it, but, right, I can feel how much the muscles have to work. Stepping to the rear, and I don't mean falling from your shoulders. I mean picking up your foot and stepping to the rear, right? Lumbar's cramping, all that kind of stuff, right? but take a step to the side. Well, that works really well, okay? So let's look at this. I'm stepping, everybody says stepping back. This is where words can screw us, okay? I'm not stepping back. I'm stepping away from the attacker, but my body, the way my legs are moving, right, is side. Right? It's not backwards. Backwards is wherever my spine is. That's behind me, right? I'm moving away, right? So when this one is triggered, right, sideways movement is easier. When I'm in this earth thing, there's no tension, flexion, or whatever, right? Any movement is easy. Okay? You just walk. Because there's no tension, right? Fire, right? There's a break point right behind your solar plexus. Right? Tip of the sternum, solar plexus, straight back, right? When we get aggravated or feel a need to reach out and get something first, what happens? This kind of thing, right? There's this kind of thing, right? Right? Or the girl walks by, right? Yeah. Anyway, right? When that happens, okay, flex that out. Side's okay, but again, muscles are working extra. Front, oh, that's easy. Back, oh, that's pretty easy, right? So this one, front back movement's easiest. Okay, for this one. Okay, shoulders, right? It's actually mid-chest, right? Right up here. There's actually a break. There's a joint in the middle of your sternum. Okay, not everybody can flex it. Okay, freaks people out when I do it. Okay, just pop it. But the more control you have over those things, right, the more adapting you can do, right? But this is what pops out more when you're surprised or when you're in one of those, whoa, hey, right? Everything's up here, okay? There's more up here. Very different from the guy who goes, hey, calm the hell down, okay? Everything, he's centered down here. He's just telling, look, chill the hell out. As opposed to, wait, as opposed to this guy because this is fire, right? As opposed to this guy, right? This is fire, right? So with this one, because it's so high and you're high on your feet, it's, right, your feet are going to be the last thing to move, right? You're up here doing this kind of thing, right? This is the boxer bob and weave kind of thing, or the Aikido guy or whatever, right? So what's easiest here is just this kind of slipping evasion kind of thing, right? So the movement up here is more, I'm going to call it spiral, but it's like a rotational kind of thing, right? Just because you're moving from your shoulders already, okay? Because everything is up, right? Okay? That's why even in English, we have the term sing up. He tensed up, okay? Right? Tensed up, okay? Relax, man. Calm down. Okay? It's very different, right? Right? So anyway, void is about thinking and communicating and things like that. So it's a little bit different, right? But anyway, right? As these things flex, right? So if I've got this thing going on, remember I talked about the weight being back here for this thing, right? For this thing, the weight's now out in the ball of my foot and my toes. Okay? For earth, right? For this just basic relaxed, it's centered. It's actually middle, but just forward of where the ankle plugs in at the instep. Right there. Centered on the foot so you can feel the weight and the connection with your foot with the floor evenly from toes all the way back to the flat of the heel. All the way back, but not on your arch. Okay? Unless you're flat-footed, in which case you got extra work to do. Okay? Right? So each one of these things, right? So if I'm kind of feeling like, go ahead, say something again. And I've got this kind of thing going on, that my body is prepping to get ready for that, right? If I got this anxiety going on and this is in here, this is going to be quicker and easier than trying to, I remember a martial arts teacher one time, no matter how much, he put me in against this big guy and my body's trying to be like this. And he's saying, go get him, go get him. And from here, I didn't know how it was working then, but now I know my body wanted to do this. Meanwhile, he's telling me to do this. And I had a hell of a time moving in. And it wasn't all mental, emotional. It was like, it felt like my body was not listening to me. Okay. Very, very different, right? Of course, the closer we can be to this earth kind of thing, right? And that's why we have two sides to training, right? We have the tiger realm and we have the dragon realm, right? Or we have the left side of training and the right side of training, okay? It's not left and right on the body. It's one side is more emotional, raw, and that's the driver, right? And you need to you need to be aware of your condition so that you can work with that. Natural, okay? Be in tune with what's already going on, right? The right side of training, the dragon side of training, is when you're in control, right? This guy's not stressing you. Like Hachimon Sensei moving around, like not going to touch him, right? So everything's just down here, right? So he just walks around, right? Just takes you out with walking, right? So all of this matters, okay? The more in line we are, or the more in tune we are with what state the body's in, we can now make that choice to go in that direction, right? Which is already going to be faster because we're already going there. It's kind of like throwing somebody, right? If you knock somebody backwards, but you want to do a ganseki, right? A forward throw, but you've knocked him off balance backwards. Well, good freaking luck, right? Because not only is he going to resist it, but you're now fighting his body weight and gravity and all that kind of shit, right? I need to get ganseki's great when he's coming at me and I can catch that and send him on his way. Same thing with a rear hip throw or whatever, right? He's already going that way. I can take him, okay? So if you start looking at your techniques that way, that'd be great, right? Okay, so Jigoku Toshi, right? Throwing them into hell. Jigoku Nage, hell throw, right? It's more of a side on and then a turn kind of thing, or not, right? But he's already going in that direction. So we have these different throws and things to catch somebody, right, doing what they're doing, right? So here's the cool thing. This works. The bad side of this is it works for whoever's in control of it. If you're in control of your body and doing what your body's strong and already doing, great. If you're not and don't know what's going on and he does and can catch it on purpose or accidentally, you're screwed. Okay? So this isn't about like those people I got to click off very, very early on, right? Whether you think this will work on the street or not, it's not going to work if, one, you don't believe it because you're not going to do anything with it anyway, right? Or you do buy into it, but you don't practice enough. Tanamura Sensei from the Genbukan used to always say, you practice to the point of regurgitation, right? What that means is you're so freaking bored or you're so exhausted that you just want to throw up. Do it and get back to training because you need to get to the point where your neuro network and your muscles have rewired to do the new thing when you're not thinking about it. If you still have to think about doing a skill and the way it gets done, one, you don't know it well enough for full speed. And two, you're actually slowing yourself down because you need your left brain, which is slower, to remind you how to do everything. Right? Shit happens. Anyway, all right. So the second goal, right? The first goal was what? Right? Fix the posture to neutralize the falling, right? Neutralize the force of gravity on your body. Second goal is to learn to recognize where your body is already going so you're not fighting yourself. One of my teachers used to always say, never, ever, ever be an accomplice to your own ass kicking. Your job is to make him an accomplice to his, right? So the more of these things we can get a handle on, the less we're going to be one and the more we can do the other, okay? All right, so let's do this little bonus thing. I'll just leave this little guy up here, right? Which, again, we're on neurology, so we're going to look at one of your five senses, which is your sense of sight, okay? Very, very quickly. I'm not going to erase all this other stuff in here, but just do this little thing in here. We'll put a brain in this guy's head, right? Works this way, kind of, right? Brain stem, then down to the spine kind of thing, okay? And then eyeballs, right? Eyeball, right? So you have five senses, yes? Five senses, right? Your sense of sight is the only sense receptor you have, right? That has two neural pathways from the receptor to the brain. All the other ones have one. Your sense of sight has two, okay? One, okay, do this. Let's make an eyeball. Okay. Eyelid, eyebrow, right? So we got this eye, right? Eyelashes, whatever. Okay. So one, let's make a brain over here. Okay. One goes straight back to the eye center. Okay. And that's where it ends. Okay. It goes to your sight center back here. Okay. Top of the brain stem, all that wonderful, cool stuff, right? The second one goes there and it defaults up here to the neocortex, not necessarily in that spot. It goes to, right, what it's doing, right? The first one is tuned to shape and form and those kind of things, right? Not detail, okay? That's why you could be walking down a path, right, and see some movement over here and like instantly just step away from it as you turn to look, okay? Because this part recognized that movement as something, could have been a dog, could have been whatever, right? But it hasn't identified it. It moved in a way that your primitive survival mechanism, right? We came hardwired with this stuff, right? Recognizes it as something that shit would it, okay? So I can move away from it, right? So think about it triggering flinch response, those kind of things, fight, flight, or freeze, whatever, okay? I could be walking along a path and see, my eyes pick up something. I'm looking that way. And my eyes pick up something over here. And I because there was this weird feeling like I thought I saw a snake. And I looked down and it's just this branch that broke off the tree and it's kind of maybe serpentine or whatever. But now that you look at it, you go, well, how did I even think that was a snake? Okay. Well, now you got your neocortex, right? Your higher human thinking, rational, I'm the shit kind of side of your brain, trying to figure out how a primitive survival mechanism that it doesn't communicate with at all, right, could even think that what, okay? What ends up happening, and this is reaction time, okay? I'm going to show you how to be 250 times faster on your reaction time without training your muscles or anything, just starting with where you are right now, okay? This first path, we're going to call this number one, okay? This one goes straight to that sight center, and so we saw the craggy branch or whatever, but we didn't recognize it as a craggy branch. Your survival mechanism kicked in, right? It takes 2 milliseconds, right? 2 milliseconds. You can't frickin' blink that fast, okay? It takes 2 milliseconds for the image to go from here to there and that thing to trigger your hypothalamus, right? Because your amygdala is over here, all that kind of stuff, right? To trigger the fight, flight, right? Kick your muscles into gear, okay? Now, how fast you move and how sluggish you are and all that kind of stuff, that's going to play into things. But I'm talking about this message right here going to muscle, okay? 2 milliseconds, okay? This other one, we're going to call it number 2, okay? It's going to go over here and then by default go up to the neocortex because, we rational human beings, we control freaks, need to know what that is. So if we're walking along and we go, and, right, what is that? Is it a, okay? And then I recognize that it is a snake, okay? I have just wasted 500 milliseconds, okay? To put this into context, 500 milliseconds is half a second. Half a second. 1/1000. Half of that. That's a freaking eternity. In a fight and survival mechanism, that snake is already striking. Okay? So, shit, right? So the difference between the two of these, right? 250 times difference, right? 250 times. Holy shit, right? Now, how do I do this? Okay? If you've heard of Seigan no Kamae, right? Seigan means true eye or correct eye. Okay? It's not just the form, it's also what you're doing with your eyes. Now, we teach this to brand new beginners. We have them do it from Shizen no Kamae. Okay? So it's what we're doing with our eyes. So if I'm looking, and all the lineages have a metsuki, where you put your eyes, okay? But you need to figure out what you're doing with your sight consciousness because sight is made up of two things. Your eyeballs, right? Your eye function, right? Retina, lens, all that kind of stuff, and the condition of those, and what we're going to call our sight consciousness. You ever have something happen right in front of you? You're driving down the road, and somebody goes, "Wow, did you see that deer with the purple raincoat?" Or whatever, right? And you go, "No. What are you talking about?" Right? No, like it was plain as day. Well, it may have, and it may even have passed in front of your eyes, but what was your consciousness on? The road, something else happening over there, your speedometer, whatever, okay? So my eyeballs are always, this is called nekugan, naked eye, right? I've got a whole program on warrior's eyes and different ways to use your eyes to help with survival mechanisms, right? So these are always on. Even when your eyelids are closed, they're always on, okay? But if I'm not directing my consciousness to sight and I don't match that up with the object or the subject, right? I'm the subject, that's the object, right? Then I'm not going to see it, right? You have a friend walk right by you. Dude, not go say hello? Didn't see it. Well, it was right in front of you. I didn't process you. So now what? Okay. So it's in this connection right here. Okay. The way we use our eyes and the way we tune them with what's in front of us determines whether neuropathway 1 or neuropathway 2 is in effect. Okay. So Seigan, correct eye. I look straight ahead and I pick a fixed point, but I'm not going to stare at that fixed point. I'm just training my eyes on that. Sight consciousness expands to take in the whole field of vision. As soon as I do that, I'm now tuned to movement and shape. And I don't mean squares and circles and details like that. I just mean he moves, shape changes, right? That kind of thing. I'm going to respond way faster. But if I look at something or he moves his fist and I look at his fist or I'm thinking about something or whatever as I'm processing it, neuropathway 2, I just slowed myself down a shit ton. Okay? And I'm not talking about how fast I can move when I punch. I'm talking about I slowed myself down from my eyeball picking up what's in front of me and my brain triggering muscle response. See, to me, that was cool shit. That was, holy crap. Right? Now I have reason to make sure that my brain biology is healthy and all that kind of stuff, and the importance of meditation and certain type of exercises and things like that so that I can work on these things. Okay? And we have drills in the dojo where I teach this, and then I let students know when they've made a mistake and they're not paying attention to the right thing, right? So we got these big old blocker bat kind of things, right? If I catch you looking at a bat, I'm going to hit you with the other one, right? Because you're trying to guess, you're trying to do this kind of thing. You just slowed yourself down. But if you're looking straight ahead, right, you will throw a block up or whatever, or avoid or move or whatever, and not know how you knew because the survival mechanism is steering and not the I'm smarter than everybody else mechanism. Okay. Anyway, that's what I got. Sorry, this took, just almost a full hour. Anyway, so this is probably one of the longer ones. Anyway, so third goal, right? First goal, fix the posture to neutralize the falling. Second goal, learn to recognize where your body is already going, right? So you're not fighting yourself. And the third goal is learn to maximize what you have so you can understand natural as opposed to habitual. You can understand natural and you can use that. You can get that to be your way of doing things, right? So when you say, this is me, that me is in accordance with natural law, right? How the body is wired to work, maximizing things, right? We're not trying to be superhuman, right? What we're trying to be is suprahuman, right? Superhuman means like you're beyond human, right? You got bit by a radioactive spider or whatever, right? Supra means you're as human can get. And that's not pessimistic, right? That is the key to the Japanese term tatsujin. A human being fully developed, fully actualized, all faculties functioning. That's the goal. Okay. Again, we'll do part 2 next week. We're going to take a look at some of the things I started with, weight on the feet and those kind of things, right? And how to kind of use things and how to use gravity, right? Today was about neutralizing gravity. And then when gravity was compromised, knowing where you're going, right? Next week, we're going to take a look at doing it consciously and actually setting ourselves up for the first move or the next move of a given technique so we can be faster without being faster. So we can move more slowly, like Hachimon Sensei has always been teaching. The better you get this, you can actually move way slower than the attacker, no matter how fast he is, and always beat him to position. Has nothing to do with being faster than him. Well, yeah, it does. But it's not because you're firing muscles faster or that kind of speed. Because that's going to go away as you age. So how does see, this is a question most people don't ask. How does the freaking 80, 90-year-old grandmaster, how does he freaking move slower? How does he move softer and whatnot? And he's throwing everybody around. Stop trying to imitate something you don't understand because you're just going to do it, but you don't understand how he's using gravity, inertia, body weight, those kind of things, right? Because he doesn't have the same things that you have to operate with. He doesn't have the same muscle tone. He doesn't have the same, it's just, right? But his sense of timing, distancing, and those kind of things, oh, shit. We're not even close. Okay? All right. That's what I have. I'll see you next time. It'll be the new year. So when I lead everything off, right, I'll lead off with a Japanese New Year's phrase, and we'll go from there, right? So if you're watching this, end of 2022, this is our last episode for 2022. When I see you next week, it'll be 2023, and hopefully you'll be jumping on that next journey with me. In the meantime, check out the Ninpo Masterclass program that we have set up for you. And if you can make it in, January 6th, 7th, and 8th, coming up here in less than 2 weeks, week and a half, right? Our yearly Daikomyo-sai, and we're going to be diving into kata and all the ways, I can't do all. We're probably going to do 4 or 5 of the ones that I have written down of the dozen or so that I have. Different ways to use the exact same kata to get different skills out of it or to practice different skills instead of just the step-by-step. How do I hit somebody? How do I kick somebody? How do I throw somebody? Right? It'll be a cool thing. All right. So anyway, that's it. I'll see you next time. Right? On the Bruise is Right, or whatever you want to call it.